Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the channel at the moment, the links to our social media are coming up on the screen now, including things like our Discord, and if you're really enjoying what you're seeing on the channel, things like our Patreon, so you can help support us here at LMM. Today we're in Wales at the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway, looking at something that, well, I should be familiar with, but I'm really not. Behind me is a Ruston 40. This is number 297030 of 1952. And you may be thinking, why Lawrie, that doesn't look like any Ruston I've ever seen. And I would agree with you. This is clearly not how Ruston intended it, and this is not how it left the factory, no. In fact, I don't think anybody at Ruston ever could foresee this thing turning out like this. If you crouch down to about this height, you'll see that the chassis, the running gear and the wheels are all unmistakably Ruston. And then it appears that somebody snuck some steroids or male supplement into the diesel tank and it's gone dunk, dunk, dunk everywhere. It's a little bit strange. In fact, when you look at it from certain angles, it looks like either it used to be a 3-foot or even standard gauge locomotive. It's not far off the proportions of my own full-size 48. Or somebody has gone, here's a chassis, here's a body, and slam them together. It's a very mismatched look. It has the Ruston name there, which has been taken off what were left of its old body and slapped onto the new one to go, oh no, honestly it is a Ruston. The running boards there come out so far either side. I think maybe if it didn't have the running boards, it would possibly look a bit more like one complete locomotive. But the running boards, they give it kind of the impression of, I don't know, almost an American engine. It's very strange, especially with the pole there, the handrail there, so you can hang on the edge as you're going along. It just all looks... Ruston has a feel of heritage to it. They always feel old and they've got this kind of design and very much a uniform. That is how a Ruston looks. And that's what's playing with me, is the fact that it does not look like a Ruston. It has the name, but it's not one. So why was it called Glaslyn? Well, that's quite simple. It's named after a river that's just at the other end of the site. In fact, the river that runs through the Glaslyn Pass. This particular locomotive has a long and arduous history. It was supplied brand new to Hadley Lodge Brickworks, somewhere near Telford. And it worked there until 1964, where it was purchased by the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway in its first inclination. Yep, that was it. And that was it moved into heritage. Though it wasn't done with being a money-earning machine, its industrial career wasn't quite over. You see, it wasn't to stay with the Welsh Highland Railway for, well, all that long, because in 1976 it moved to the Llanberis Lake Railway, and then was used in 78 and 79, laying a power cable alongside the line. You know, a proper power cable, not for the Heritage Railway, no. This was a proper thing for the proper electrical people, you know, for electric going to your houses and stuff. And then, once they were done with it, they're like, yeah, it's done its job. And it came back here in 1980. But none of that actually explains why it looks like this. No, that was done once it came back here. You see, a Ruston 40 in its normal size and shape, as wonderful as it is, as Ruston truly knew what they were doing whenever they built anything, it wasn't quite suitable for what they wanted here at the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway. You see, 40 horsepower isn't really a lot in railway terms, I should know. And so it wasn't really man enough to work the trains. Also, being on this frame here, it's quite a narrow locomotive. So if you have coaches that have come from, say, Welsh Highland Railway itself or somewhere else, which are significantly wider, it does mean it's quite difficult to, see the guard from the cab. And apparently, being able to see the guard to tell you it's all right to leave is quite an important thing in railway circles. So this is where the start of the idea to modify it came from. It's been made wider so that you can see out and see your train and see the man with the flag saying it's all right to go. It's also been given a different engine in there. this is never what Ruston intended. You see, Ruston generally use their own power plants. And this one you might be able to see says Perkins on it. It's also a 6-cylinder diesel. This is a Perkins 6354, which kind of conveniently is its cubic inch displacement, which translates into modern maths as about 5.5 litres, something like that. And it generates, depending on what model it is, somewhere between 122 horsepower and 158. Probably. That's what they say. However, the railway believe that it's been downrated to be a 60 horsepower engine, which works very well with a 40 horsepower gearbox, because it's still got the original Ruston gearbox in there. It's coupled together with a fluid coupling, which takes some of the grunt out of much bigger, heavy engine, so it means it doesn't immediately go to the gearbox and shatter it into a million pieces. So it kind of works quite well in that regard. Although, that's not to say that this has been a huge success. This is, in fact, engine number 3. It's had one other Perkins the same as this, and another Perkins that was slightly different. But at the moment, it's all fine and good. It still looks totally wrong. I know what I'm meant to be seeing when I open up one of these engine bays, and that's not it. It's gigantic for the engine. This is a really good example of how a locomotive has evolved in its lifetime and how it's been changed to actually meet the needs of what people want it to do. Normally this is the kind of thing you would see done in industry. It's rare to see something like this done actually in heritage. It's quite an impressive thing though. I mean, it's a much bigger and more modern power plant. It makes the whole engine a much bigger and more modern engine. Was this what the future of Ruston could have been? So, clambering up into a narrow gauge Ruston is a weird sensation. It's got this weird staggered footprint that you stand up into it and you come up here on top of the gearbox, as you would a normal Ruston. The biggest and most notable thing about this whole cab is actually it's a floating cab. It's on rubber. So if I shake it, the whole space shakes. But the rest of the loco doesn't, which means that when we go on a run, this should be rather pleasant. Now, initial reaction is there's a lot of glasses. It's a very open and airy cab, and it's all nicely shaped. You see, got these nice bits here that mimic the bonnet, and here, and not there, because that end got smashed, and they couldn't get another piece of glass the same shape, so that's just a different piece of glass now, just because. Looking straight in front of me, we have the controls I know and love. The Ruston gearbox, just like my own. First, second, third. Having a seat and reaching across to it, that's just weird. Forward and backwards is here, with forwards being this way and reverse being that way, and I've got a handbrake here. There's also the control down there for the fluid coupling. You have a running mode for, funnily enough, when it's running, and shut down, which is, funnily enough, for when the engine is shut down, and that stops it leaking everywhere when it's idle. And then we have this bit, which is entirely new and I don't understand. This just feels so wrong inside a Ruston. This here is for our air horn. Originally this was a 2-tone, so you go dang dang with it. Now it's just a single tone. We have an alternator discharge light there and a low oil warning light there. These 2 gauges here are for our air brake system. Yes, this has been upgraded to have air brakes, both on the locomotive, which we can see here, and also on the train, which is that lot there. This is quite good and means it can run modern stock and safely and properly. Then we've got our battery voltage level for what the alternator's doing, the temperature gauge, and then oil pressure. All pretty standard stuff across there. Then my favourite thing is we have dual controls here. We have air brake control here, which is dual control, and throttle control here. There's this wonderful thing here, which opens up. And you're probably thinking, why is there a hinge there? This has got a run fitted on it, so when we're normally operating, that's your limit. If we open it here, it says start. Cold day, you want more fuel, so you can move the throttle further for extra fuel for that cold start system. That's the best ever cold start I have ever come across. So we got a key on the side there, and then there's an engine stop just tucked down there. And that's it. It's quite simple. The layout in here is quite a traditional system, but it's just not what I expect for a Ruston. And of course I do have a fully padded seat, which this kind of seat in this position with a control desk is totally unheard of in a Ruston. And frankly I quite like it. It's very different. But with the controls looked at, the only thing left to do is find out how much prep there is to do on this, and I can only assume, as everything's been modernised, it's going to be ludicrously simple. So for the preparation, we have to go back to the start of the day where this thing was still inside the shed. And prep is, thankfully, remarkably easy. We open up the engine bay here, reach in to release the catch on that side and open up this like so. And then there are just two things to check. First of all, we have the world's longest dipstick here, which comes out and comes out. It's like a magician's trick. And we check that there is indeed the black wick stuff on that, and there is, and now we have to do a contortionist act to put that back into there, and then clamber inside to hit the release and have a look to see if there's any water in there. And there is, so that's good. And then a gentle tap is what's needed to reset that. Next, I grab a spanner and my can of oil, and we drop down to have a look at the axle boxes. And there is just a bolt on the end there. We undo this, like so, and then we get my oil can, and we just chuck oil into here until it is once again full. Like so, with a little dribble coming out, lets us know it is full again. Put the little bung back in, like so. Snug it up with the spanner to make sure it's not going to leave, like so. And now I have to repeat for the other three axle boxes. There is absolutely no difference in what I have to do for the other three, so we won't bother showing you that. Instead, we'll go straight into what needs to be done inside the cab. In here, the first and most important thing to check is to see if we have any of that liquid coal called diesel. So we undo this and have a quick gander and go, yep, there is indeed diesel inside the tank. Once we've ascertained that it is indeed full of fuel, we can put the filler cap back on and screw it back up. And then we can put with two fingers and pull the charger off, like so, and turn the battery into the on position, which makes the whole thing live. Next up, we need to take this from shutdown into running. And then finally in the cab, I need to prise the little wooden cap off here and reach down into the depths to recover this, the gearbox oil stick, which has indeed got oil on it. So I can replace that back into the depths of which it came. It's a very dark hole, so put that back. If it was low, there's this hole here, and that's where we'd fill up the oil for the gearbox. But with that done, all that remains is to turn the key and fire it up. So we can flick this over into the start position, turn the key, hold it for a few seconds so the glow plugs can do their thing, not that we really need it on a day like today, open up the throttle and turn the key. Next job is we've got to shut the air tanks, the drains, so we can build up a bit of air pressure for the air brake, and then we can take it out for a run. Whilst we'd been busy preparing the locomotive, the lovely people at the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway had been preparing a train for us. So we went and got that. So here we are on board the Ruston. Maybe once upon a time this was a Ruston, but now, yes, it's effectively strange. It feels more to me like a Plymouth, an American engine, than it does a Ruston, because it's so much bigger and larger and frankly more well refined. The cab on this, though totally unoriginal, the fact it's floating means it's so much more pleasant to be in. Yes, I can hear the noise of the transmission, I can hear the noise of the engine, but comparatively to anything else I've driven on navigation, this is so nice. It's a proper, nice, modern cab. The seat too is comfortable. It's just very, very pleasant to be in. And with this high visibility seating position, I've got a good view looking forward. That said, the bonnet is absolutely massive, and I have no idea where the front of the engine is. How people shunt with this, I have absolutely no idea. Equally, the back, where I really want a window to see the rear coupling hook, I can't. But with the train I have on behind me now, I can see over the top of most of the wagons, so I can see my entire train, and that's brilliant. And the fact that I'm so wide out this, I can see alongside the train quite easily. And I do like the fact that the doors are open, there's a breeze coming through, it's quite pleasant, and it is a very nice, open, airy cab. In fact, possibly the most pleasant open wide cab I've ever been on the 2 foot. It's really nice. The other thing I like is it's not the noise I expect at all from a Ruston. This is not a Ruston noise. That transmission noise I expect, with that purr, that more modern purr of rage and anger. That's not what I expect. I expect a far more kind of unrefined noise. And hearing that effectively lorry noise coming from it sounds so strange and so weird, but it's a very addictive roar. And it just pulls. It's great. You just open it up and it goes, yep, off we go. That combined with the Ruston transmission is strange. Because I'm kind of just expecting to drive this on this. And then you have to remember to change gear in the same way you would a traditional Ruston. And then as you bring it in, as soon as it starts engaging, you just bring it across because the fluid flywheel, the fluid transmission in there, takes out some of the shock. So it's just like, yep, it's engaging and bring it in. So it's so very different to what else I've driven. Comfort though, yep, this is all about it. Like sitting here, driving forward, I can watch the bonnet vibrate and bounce and I don't feel it in here. And that is absolutely brilliant. The way that it rides and goes though, it feels a bit like a giant lolloping along. It feels almost too big. It feels like this started as a locomotive that was at least 3 foot gauge and then was gauged down. It doesn't feel like something that started 2 foot gauge and grew out. And it's strange because I'm not used to being this high up on something this small. It's a very strange position. Nice having the controls here. It's nice having some information on what the locomotive's doing rather than like on mine where I have a single gauge going, yeah, you got some oil pressure and yeah, you got some electricity. Actually having an idea and having the air brakes, this is a far more refined machine. It's a far better machine almost. Now certainly I like an old Ruston. I like the sound it makes and the sensation of driving it. But this is the next level. It really does feel like a next level machine, one that has slowly as time's crafted it, as people have gone, actually we wanted to be able to do this, and it's what it is exactly. It's a locomotive that people have gone, it's not quite up to task, and then people have thought about it and gone back to it and gone, but we can do this and we can make it up to task. And that's quite unusual today, especially in heritage circles, to find a locomotive that's been modified to perform a task, that's been made better. And yes, maybe it's a shame to lose the heritage of the original thing, but it's undeniably what the railway needs and undeniably the task they need better. They've already got another 48, so I don't see the need to put this back or to be worried about what this has become. This is a Ruston on steroids. This is the evolution of the Ruston. And yes, I'll go, as Ruston aren't here anymore and Ruston don't exist, maybe it's not a true Ruston. I mean, the conversion wasn't done in Lincoln, so... But it makes sense. I kind of can see this is where things would have eventually gone if Ruston had kept going. That works. But, yeah. It's weird. It's taken a while to get my hang of what I'm trying to do with it, because I'm trying to combine the old and the new together. And that, as soon as I started to not drive it like I wanted to drive it for a Ruston and drove it how you meant to drive this, it's great. And it drives really well. It's a very simple thing. It's very easy. It's very controllable. It's a rare thing for 2-foot gauge that you could quite happily spend the entire day sat on it and go, that was good, and do it again. And let's be honest, most 2-foot gauge engines, they're fun for a day or two. But after that, you're like, my back hurts, or my head hurts, or it's just uncomfortable. This you could live with. This you could work every day and still like it. Because it's lovely. On a day like this, maybe a tad hot. It does need a fan somewhere in the cab. But with this huge amount of glass and ability to see everywhere, I can really appreciate the Welsh countryside. And that's a really nice touch. It's something that they thought about what they wanted to do and then went ahead and did it and made something which is great. I like this. I'd have this. I'd definitely have this thing. This kind of Ruston. I still don't feel it's a Ruston. That's the big problem. I look and I see the gearbox, I see the transmission, I go Ruston. But when I sit here and I look forward, it's not Ruston. But it does have air brakes, which if you do this, stop the thing absolutely dead. And that is a wonderful, wonderful addition. So that brings us to the end of this video, looking at this thing that was, at some point in its history, definitely a Ruston. At this point now, it's got Ruston bits, but I'm not really sure. It's something inspired by Ruston, and maybe what Ruston could have made if you fed it a load of steroids. It's a really weird and super thing. It's absolutely great. Strange, but certainly absolutely great, and weird to see how Ruston might have been if they had continued on to almost present day. And certainly here, with its short little goods train in the mountains, it looks superb, and I have had an absolutely magnificent day driving it about. And if you want more information on this one, or maybe want more information on the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway, check out their website. The links to that are in the video description. And if you want to do what I do and drive, well, not this one, but some of the steam engines they have here, they do offer a driver experience course in better times when the COVID thing's not around. And of course, have a look. And remember, it's not just a train ride here. They've got the Miniature Railway, there's the museum. It's a proper day out, and in the heart of Wales, good thing to do. So, with that, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. And of course, if you have enjoyed this one, how about clicking somewhere over there for one of our other reviews, or down there for one of our swanky 360-degree videos. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.